We use that long. Yeah, you don't want to stop at 1962.
Of course, Tim, you have
I didn't get roped in anything. I did this all my life. I didn't even know how to do it. How do we keep the history alive when we don't know?
Bobby. Bobby.
You need a secret.
Bobby.
And there's, I think we're honestly, should be out like all the 50. There's a lot of information for the 50. I don't want to stop at a decade. I don't want to stop in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
I gotta put this in there.
Do you need your glasses?
Yeah, I hear you. Can anybody hear me? Yeah. Good, I'm leaving.
It's everybody. Yeah.
Hi, I am Lynn Rowley. We are thrilled that you're here. This is a special evening because the last time we were here was 3 years ago. And we all know what happened. So this is a good thing.
Guys, shut that light off, please.
You she's giving an intro. That's all they do.
This is just a little bit. I'm being upstage already. This is something I do at the beginning of every one of our meetings because we are a 501c3 and that means we don't have any money. And I know I was always raised to talk about money as crass. However, in this situation, I'm making a big exception because we don't get money from the town. We don't get money from any other organizations. We do have a wonderful grant writer, Gail Scanlon, who is sitting over there. So she has been very successful in yearly getting us a grant from Bergen County, but it's not enough. So, can anybody tell me what this is? Yes. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over on that table. And when you leave, I would love it if you can empty your pockets. Right in your pockets. I'll put it right here. And it's greatly appreciated and it's very much needed. And again, thank you so much for coming. And I have a little introduction.
Oh, you do?
I do. Yeah. Okay. And I have to say, don't I have to thank
Yeah.
Lois?
Lois did all that, without a doubt.
Thank you very much.
My secretary.
Yeah. Good job. There is, Lois did such a beautiful job as a term thing.
She wrote everything I said. too.
This is good for teamwork. So I am going to read it, forgive me for that, because I did not read it to you. Nick joined the Wyckoff Fire Department on October 27, 1962. He served 4 years as department chief from 1986 to 1989. He is a past president of Protective Fire Company No. 1 and a past president of Northwest Bergen Mutual Aid Association. He is also a member of the Bergen County Firemen's Home Association that serves the needs of the residents at the New Jersey Firemen's Home in Houghton and served as president of the association. He was the director of the Fleet Maintenance Division of the New York Fire Department for 17 and a half years. 17 and a half years. And Nick is also an honorary battalion chief, WFD NY. He comes from a firefighting family. His grandfather was one of the founders of the Lodi was a fire chief in Fairlawn, and his uncle was a fire chief in Lodi. His oldest son, Michael, is a lieutenant in the FDNY and recently wrote his first book for the fire services, Tower, Ladders, Tactics, Tips, and Tales. Nick's youngest son, John, is a member of Protective Fire Company Number 1 and served as a deputy fire chief. His son-in-law is a member of the Wyckoff Community Engine Number 2 and a former deputy chief. Grandson Kevin is a member of the Protective Fire Company Number 1 and the fifth generation of Ciampo family firefighters. His mother was a member of the Fairlawn Fire Department Ladies Auxiliary. His wife, Lois, has been a member of the Wyckoff Fire Department Ladies Auxiliary since 1963. And served 2 terms as president. His daughter Lisa and granddaughter Lauren are also members of the Ladies Auxiliary, and Lisa served a term as president. John's wife, Libby, is also a member of the Ladies Auxiliary. With that, I give you the former chief of the Wyckoff Fire Department, Nick Ciampo.
Hold on. Now, while she was speaking, you were supposed to look at that
It was there.
photo up there.
It was there.
That's my introduction to the fire services right there, when I was about 3 years old, 4 years old, whatever, 3. And then I finally upgraded myself to a newer vehicle back then. All right, and then I just wanted to quickly, my grandfather, we started the Lodi Fire Company Number 1 in 1908, him and another gentleman. My uncle, who was the chief of the Lodi Fire Department. My father, who was the chief of the Fairlawn Fire Department. Okay? And of course, that's our family right now. I also have my first cousin's son is a fireman in Houston, and I have another first cousin son who's a fireman in Colorado. They're all career firefighters. Okay? We're all done. Okay, to start off with, we got to go back in time. Remember, this is 1904. We had no electricity, no running water, no paved streets. I went horse and buggy. Most likely not many had cars. So what happens is, in 1904, on Ewing Avenue, okay, the Ewing Estates had a fire, and they lost a building. Okay, 1904. 1905 comes along, and again on the Ewing Estates, on Ewing Avenue, they lost almost 24 buildings there. At that time, they realized there was a need for a fire company. It was very evident at that point. And that's when 30 residents of Franklin Township, remember we're talking about Franklin Township. I still don't know when, I know when Wyckoff started, but I don't know when the fire department changed their name to Wyckoff. I'm not positive of that, okay? All right, in April 1907, 30 residents of Franklin Township got together and talked about establishing, they got together at the Wyckoff Reformed Church and started to discuss starting a fire company, establishing one there. And that was in April 1907. In May 1907, Charles Parmalee, who becomes chief later on, decided on a name for that and called it Protection Fire Company Number 1. To start off with, and this is new to me also, and probably to all of us, Protection Fire Company 1 was a private company from 1907 to 1923, okay? And from 1923 to 1938, it became a contracted company to the township of Wyckoff. Okay, so it's quite different than we're familiar with as far as the fire service is now in our area. The first chief was chosen, and that was Charles Parmley. I think you put that on there already. Sorry about that. The first chief was James Winters. I'm thinking about it. And then Depew, and then Parmley. Now, Parmley was a chief, actually, over the years, and I'm jumping ahead, for approximately 25 years. Not consecutive, as you could see on the bottom there, but he was a chief for quite a few years, as you can see there. All right, so now they needed a place to call the members out. So the Wyckoff School had a bell on it. They used that bell initially to call out the firefighters. Now remember, what did they have? Brooms, buckets, maybe rakes or something like that. That was it. That's all they had back then. So you got to get back to that era. You just can't believe it today, what we have today compared to how things were then. Okay? Then in 1908, what am I for 48? They purchased a railroad ring or a locomotive tire, as it's called, okay? They hung that at the corner of Wyckoff and Franklin Avenue, and that was a property of Abraham Quackenbush, and I guess he was the one that came out with the sledgehammer to hit that. Now again, remember, it sounds really different from us. First of all, how would you hear that? Well, I guess it was quite quiet around here back then. So when he hit that thing, I guess it traveled quite a bit in the air and notified quite a few of the firefighters that they had a call. In May 1908, Daniel Depew was elected as the second chief and Charles Parmley as his assistant chief. They decided in June of 1908 that it was time to get some sort of piece of fire equipment. They talked about a hand-drawn chemical mounted on a 2 wheels. And they thought it was necessary at that point to have something like this. So they contacted the Howe Engine Company of Indianapolis and purchased one. In July of 1908, the engine was given a thorough test and accepted by the fire company. And you did see the first picture where you did see the men in front of the barn, the red barn. That was a Hartung barn, and it was opposite the Morrison store, it says. So I don't know where exactly that was myself, but that's what the history book that I read has told me. All right, it was on Wyckoff Avenue someplace there. Okay, so that barn that we did see was the first place they really housed our chemical 2-wheel wagon there. Remember, that's what they call, I believe, soda acid mixture, where they had the water and the acid, and then they mixed it, and that's what they extinguished the fires with back then. During the later part of 1908, a committee was appointed to secure property for which the firehouse was to be built. On March 22nd, 1909, the alarm sounded for the alarm. Okay, the Wyckoff Hotel on Russell Avenue, at the corner, I believe, of Wyckoff Avenue and Russell, an old historic landmark, right, was on fire. As you could see, it was burning quite a bit. What happened was, of course, again, buckets, brooms, and this chemical wagon was at the barn. At that point, Henry Herman Klomberg arrived at the barn with his delivery wagon. Apparently he had a store or something, and he had a delivery wagon with a horse pulling it, and they hooked it to the wagon, and down the road they went to the fire at the Wyckoff Hotel. Of course, again, dirt roads, ruts, so on and so forth. The equipment was falling off the chemical wagon as it went down the road. By the time they got there, there wasn't much equipment left on it. They looked up the road, and there was their equipment laying on the road behind them. It's quite interesting when you think about it, compared to today, all right? The volunteers were able to save, though, some other adjoining buildings that they had, but the hotel was definitely lost. In 1910, they were short firemen. Back then it was called firemen. They were short. So they merged with the Young Men's Club, of Wyckoff, taking the entire group into the civil group, into the Protection Fire Company #1. Okay? So that helped them then with manpower when that was needed. As you see the photo there, that's the original firehouse, and we'll come to when it was built, but I just want to show you that's what they were looking at. That's of course on the Clinton and Morris Avenue there. In September 1910, Protection Fire Company #1 purchased the Ackerman property. That was at the corner of Clinton and Morris Avenue. And they set out to raise money for a new building. At that point in 1910, Protection Fire Company #1 Ladies Auxiliary was formed. As the majority of the wives were homemakers, they were able to assist in calls. Through a phone dispatch, they would organize refreshments for the volunteers, provide necessary child care, and at prolonged fires, they'd serve coffee, refreshments completely. Mrs. William Scott was the first president of the Ladies Auxiliary. I missed my word there. During the next 2 years, they spent countless hours doing the construction work on the new fire quarters and raised needed funds with the help of the Ladies Auxiliary. The organization and fundraiser events, along with the generosity of the township residents, the building was ready to be moved in by 1912. The laying of the cornerstone was July 15th, 1912. Now, the day they dedicated that's this picture here. It said the dedication on it. That's the members that were there on the day of the dedication of the firehouse, 1912. Also, 1912 was the first year that the Township of Franklin appropriated $200 for the needs of the volunteers. And we'll go to the next one. I put this one in here because I thought it was quite different. As you notice, the Wyckoff #1 baseball team, they are on the left side there. Look at the way they're dressed. Look how they played baseball. Compared to, that was a photo I found from the early 80s, I think it is, or something like that.
Your kid's got the cut-off shorts.
Anyway, so that's some of the boys. Actually, a few of those boys that are there had become professional firefighters, and a lot of them still belong to fire companies, maybe not in Wyckoff where they have moved to. There. Okay, 1917 comes, and here we go. Decide for the first motorized, what is that now back then? This is the first motorized chemical type of vehicle that they bought from the town, city of Patterson, okay? And I couldn't believe the price. They paid $2,200, it says, for it. To me, that was a lot of money back then, okay? They paid that. And you could see that, and if you go to the next one, please. Now, there it is, the same unit in Patterson. Glenn Corbett was able to get these photos for me, and there's the original where it was before it came to Wyckoff in Patterson Engine 11. From 1921, now there's our firehouse where they completed it then and made renovations to fit more than one engine eventually into it. From 1921 through 1923, they saw many fires. But before they get there, let me just finish this up first before we get to that. Okay, there's just pictures I did spot of the old time where in front of that old chemical truck there. Some of the members that were there, I thought it was pretty nice seeing those old photos. And then the one on the left here shows a photo of what the uniform they were wearing back then on the left, and that's a much modern one there to the right. That one is probably in the late 30s or so, the uniform to the right. That's the Class A uniform. Okay, as I started to say, I'm jumping ahead of you, Nicole, there. From 1921 through 1923, you had a fair share of fires. Of course, that was the Wyckoff Public School, which burnt down, then Hornets. And I mentioned this to you right now. In the front, on the right-hand side, we have the Hornets family sitting here. We have 3 descendants of the original Hornets right here with us. Phenomenal to see them here tonight. So that was part of the store that burnt back then. That would be their great-grandfather, I guess. That there. Pardon?
Just grandfather.
Just grandfather? Sorry, grandfather. Okay. So that takes care of it. As the ownership was transferred then of the equipment to the township in 1923. During that time, they installed also a siren now, a modern way, I guess they had electricity here now, to have the members respond to the firehouse. They purchased, the township purchased this chemical truck, and then they bought that, we'll go back one, they bought that little Model T there. That was a supply truck that they bought for the members there. I thought that was a pretty nice picture now also. Now the next one I'm going to throw at all you firefighters are here, and if there's any cupcakes in the room, let me know, all right? And your firefighters will know what I'm talking about. Okay, go to the next slide, please. Now this slide happened to be in our group, and it said on it, white chemical engine. And as you notice something on that engine, it is not a chemical engine. That's actually a pumping engine there. You see the pump on it. Okay, I don't know where it came from, but it was in that group like that. I don't know if Wyckoff was trying to purchase it or what, but that's what this particular engine is here. Next one. And this is the Chief Parmley on the left, and some of his officers and town people when they received that white 260-gallon tank chemical wagon. That's what that is. And that's the chemical wagon right there with them standing in front with the, again, the hose wagon or utility vehicle Model T in the back. If you notice the extinguishers on it, again, they're handheld soda acid extinguishers. And if you're not familiar with them, when you puts the stuff in there, and once you turn it upside down, it activates the stuff, and that's how you utilize that extinguisher. And you got to hold it upside down for it to go. I thought this was quite interesting because New Jersey, New York Firemen's Association, I'm going to tell you back then it was the #1 training for fire services in Rockland County and Bergen County. That's where New York comes into the picture. It's still active today, but originally it was a big thing to belong to this. They held many parades over the years. As I go down on, you'll hear, all right, competitions of all sort, and a lot of training and unbelievable meetings they would have. They would have maybe 150 men, at a meeting, and then some back then. All right, and then in 1929, the Wyckoff Fire Department joined the New Jersey State Firemen's Association, which just about all the fire departments in New Jersey belong to that. I believe there's only about 20 that do not throughout the New Jersey that belong to this. And their ways there is to help firefighters. This way, back then, a firefighter would never be buried in Potter's Field. Basically, that was one of the starting points of this organization, to help firefighters and firefighter families, and they do come up to today also with a death benefit for firefighters that have obtained the proper percentage for the proper amount of years. They're entitled then for a death benefit, the family yet. Again, we have, in that era there, I put them all together. I thought it was interesting that somebody, I don't know who, I think Bruce Scott was the one who was very active here, wrote the names of those individuals, the majority of them that were there back in 1928. That's marked on there in the picture. I thought it was quite interesting in front of the firehouse there, again at Company 1. And here's the officers, which he had marked who they were: Pete Pullis, Fred Spawn, Rudolph Ackerman, Fred Seitz, Charlie Parmley. They're officers there. That's probably in the early 30s there. That were all officers of Company 1 there. Again, here's another picture of, looks like maybe the town fathers along with the firefighters from Protection Fire Company 1. Another picture that I guess Bruce marked again, the names in that. And in this uniform here, I believe this was their parade uniform, this one here. This wasn't their Class A dress uniform. This was their parade uniform here. And as I say, we did a lot of, well, you'll see we've gone to quite a few parades over the years. And I like this picture also. That was Chief Parmley with the Rio Speedwagon, all right, that they're sitting in. I thought it'd be nice to see that from back in the 30s. That. Yes. Yeah. And here we go now. I happen to recognize some of the members sitting there, and they were very young at the time. The second one from the left on the bottom is Jake Flaker. He was a fireman probably for, I don't know, 70 years in Wyckoff approximately. And this is right after they joined, and I looked at him. He joined around 1935 when he joined, and that. And if you look up on the top of the right, the second one, that's Bucky Gabriel. And then the third from the top on the left, one of them is, or fourth, is Bruce Scott. I think that's Harnett on the next row down the end. It's Mr. Harnett. Right, and next to him, I believe, is Jack Shepard. And then the next one over, next over is Ted Hyunga. All right? So I was able to recognize some, and they were, when I joined, some of my mentors, they really taught us and trained us how to be firefighters all the way through. And I don't know who the young boy with the dog is, though, but I thought it was nice to know. Now, along with this, I wanted to mention the first major fire that was cast, I can't even say the word now. Thank you. All right. It was a Christian sanitarium fire. And that was now, it's Christian Healthcare Center, right? This occurred in 1935. It was tragic because there were 36 patients there that they rescued, but they lost 2. They just couldn't get to 2 of them. And you think of that again back then, with the type of equipment and gear that they wore, God bless them that they went in and did what they had to do to get these residents out. It took some back then to get in there. Of course, back then compared to now, it had wood burning, paper burning maybe, and hair burning maybe, and that. So you didn't have the chemical situations you have today, which was in their favor a bit, but still it was hot. The gear they wore was nowhere compared to what we have today. They did, to my opinion, an unbelievable job on saving 34 residents that were there, or 36, I'm sorry. They also, Hawthorne, Midland Park, Franklin Lakes, and Patterson came in to help extinguish that fire. There's, again, some of the chiefs that were there, Parmley in the middle, and I'm sorry I don't know the names of the other ones there. In 1936, the fire company building was taken over by the township. 2 years later, the fire company itself was placed under the control of the township committee. 2 years later. And I wanted to mention something before that I didn't. And that is, when you look at some of these pictures along there, especially the rig from 1917, you see Wyckoff, New Jersey on it. That was 1917. According to my notes, which I didn't read before, on November 2nd, 1926, that's when it was changed from Franklin Township to Wyckoff Township. That's when we became Wyckoff Township, 1926. All right, so I was a little confused on that particular one, exactly why it was marked for Wyckoff, New Jersey on it, on those photos. Okay. At this point now, staffing again was a problem, critical shortages. The fire company was in need of more members, and they merged with the Wyckoff Athletic Club in 1938. So I mentioned before that about the control. Now we go next further down. As the town started to grow, there was a need to expand and start a new fire company. Gene Spender was one of the primary who lived in East Wyckoff, became the first chief down there and president of their company. So Community Engine in 1938, Community Engine Company number 2 was started. They first met in the East Wyckoff Community Club. Now, the original charter of 15 men included 14 who transferred from Company 1, and they picked up 1 new member from down there. Finally, they did receive a 1931 Chevy supply truck from Company 1, and originally it was housed on Ravine Avenue. I think it was a barn on Ravine Avenue. I couldn't find all the information on that, but I believe that's where it was. And they later moved to a garage at the rear of the East Wyckoff Community Club. They used the same iron rail locomotive tire alarm system, was brought down to Company 2 and used to call their members out down there. In 1939, to me, this is the first purchase of a Aaron's Fox 500-gallon GPM pumper, gallons per minute pumper, that went to Company 1, and then the 1929 chemical wagon went to Company 2. Now this is what the note that I had on this, on the bottom one is the officers there standing by it. And then on the top picture is when they were doing the pump test of the new apparatus that they received. Now this is the first time Wyckoff is getting a pumping apparatus. 1939. In 1940, the siren from number 1 was transferred to company 2, and an air horn system was set up in company 1 for the alarms to have the firefighters respond. This picture I threw in here just for the heck of it. The picture is in the 40s, maybe mid 40s, somewhere around there, 46, I'm guessing. Just wanted to stay back with that one, please. On the right would be Sam Brain. The next one is Jim Blarkham, next to the left. The one in the middle, right, is Chief Vance, who was a police chief. The next is Mitchell, who was another police chief eventually in Wyckoff. On the level and to the left is, I remember his first name, Art Pickering. He was a chief, and they're police chiefs in Franklin Lakes. Do I have the right name there? Good, thank you. All right, so that, I thought that photo was good. So again, there's the fox in front of the firehouse there. Now, just before we get to that, so leave it on. In November 1942, now Company 2 formed an auxiliary, and they also did fundraising, and they sold war bonds during World War II and worked with the Quaker Society and sent relief kits to the war-torn Europe. Company 2 back then, they started their own ladies auxiliary down there also. Now, in April 1943, this is during the war again, Sycamore started to pick up on residents. So there was a need now to start a third fire company up in Sycamore. That's 1943 that this was started. Was formed with 20 members, and they purchased a used truck themselves, and they refurbished it with their own funds and their own members rebuilding it. And you think of that today, that's phenomenal. During World War II, in 1943, just want to mention this, is it something not on here? All right, hold that, hold. My father used to talk to me about different things. And he said to me one time, you know, he says, we had a mutual aid in 1943. I was part of that. Really, I said. Well, unbeknown, we were looking at the records at Company 2 when we did the 100 year, and in there was a letter, then notes of the meetings that they had there, forming this mutual aid with 6 towns as far as Hillsdale, Westwood, Wyckoff, Fairlawn, a few other towns I can't remember, that were in this back then. And there, as I read it there, it's talking about Sam Brain as the chairman, and there it says John Ciampo gave a report on fire, whatever it was back then. I just couldn't believe it. Here I am looking at this paper from 1943, didn't know anything about it until I read this. I know it has nothing to do with Wyckoff, but in a sense it does, because we were part of that mutual aid back then. And in January 1944, Company 3 acquired land from the Sycamore Community Association on Sycamore Avenue. A good deal of work was done by the members and completed by the middle of 1945. That's much of the structure that they were building there on that property that they purchased, right? Steel was donated by Marchese and Edson. That's the Victory Iron Works up there on, owners of the Victory Iron Works on Mountain Avenue. Early funding for the property for the original firehouse was provided by Cornelius Van Beeken. He was Casey, as we called him, was a heck of a guy. You would never know this about Casey, of the things he did without anybody knowing. He had a few bucks, God bless him, but you would never know it because he was a very given guy at the time. And he helped them along with the members also working to get funds to take care of the mortgage for Company 3. And the thing about that, the reason I said it that way is, along with Company 2 and Company 3, members, new members there, put their houses up in order to get the mortgage. Think of that today. They put their houses up in order to get the mortgage to build the firehouse. It's unbelievable when you think about it. Oh, here we go. In 1944, just jumping there, just keep where you are, the township purchased a 500-gallon pumper from the town of Pagoda, finally replacing that chemical wagon that was down at Company 2, which good, that brought them up to at least having a pumper down there. Then Sam Brain became chief. I can't tell you how much this gentleman did the Wyckoff Fire Department over the years. Anything we did for years, even when I joined and years on, any place where we went, they would always say, here comes Sam Brain's fire department, firemen. They always said that. And he purchased himself a 1923 American France hook and ladder from the village of Ridgewood, right, in 1946. And the town then purchased it from him. The reason he bought it, that I remember them saying, the old guys with me, was the reason he bought it because they were going to lose it. Somebody else wanted to buy it. So they wanted to make sure that we got it. So in 1947, Sam became the chief. And that's the unit right there that he purchased there. And before I go any further, there's another picture there? Okay. Of course, the war was a big thing for all around back then. I recognize quite a few there. If you look carefully, you'll probably recognize quite a few. When they returned from the service after World War II, the fire company had a nice banquet for them in the Susquehanna Hotel. I believe that was in Paterson, New Jersey. Thinking of all those members, there's quite a few that I know that are there that were in the Navy, the Army, and I believe one was in the Army Air Corps, I can remember. Okay. Now, I mentioned to you about Harnett. Harnett goes back to the early 1903s, I understand, in Wyckoff. Percy's store. You might remember that if you're an old timer in Wyckoff. Well, this is our truck being, I have to show Joe Landy this picture. Guess who's driving the tiller up there? That's Joe Landy, who's 96 right now, living in the the New Jersey State Fireman's Home. That's Joe, and Ed Winters is driving the apparatus, according to Joe. I thought that was quite neat. Now, here we go. You got to understand, the Landys owned a farm on Crescent Avenue. Basically, I'm going to call it a horse farm because I'm not sure exactly what else they had there, but they did stable horses and had horses. So Sam had gotten this steamer when he purchased the quarry in Halden. He got this steamer along with it. And he kept it at his place in Wyckoff here. And they decided to put it in parades back then. This happens to be one of Joe's horses that's pulling it. And that's Joe's father, Joe Landy, that's driving the horses there. When I showed these pictures to Joe, he said, whoa, that's my father. He said, driving those horses. I thought that was unbelievable when you think about it, to come up with a picture like this. There's Joe right now. He was visiting us in Wyckoff at Protection Fire Company #1. Okay. Here he was, his birthday, his 95th birthday was last year. All right. And our members from company went up to wish him a happy birthday and gave him a little plaque up there and took him for a ride up in our bucket. Of course, Louis, I believe, is in that bucket with him. Louis Rizzo, he's up in that bucket also with him there. I thought that was interesting. Of course, this picture on the right was in August. Lois and I belong to the Bergen County Firemen's Home Association. We go up there 6 times a year. We give refreshments and entertainment, and in the summertime it'll be a picnic, a barbecue, and then at Christmas time they all get a gift from Bergen County Firemen's Home Association. So that's Joe, Lois, and I in August visiting Joe at that. Again, there's a picture of the old Miracle of France. I found that picture and I thought, okay, here we go. These are the big ones.
Where are you, Lois?
How do you like those pictures? I thought they were unbelievable when you think about it. Wyckoff was well known, not only fighting fires, for parades. Dress parade uniform, not a Class A uniform like the blue uniform. This is a Class A. And if you just go back a second again, if you look there, I counted, there's about 50 ladies marching there in that picture. Look at that. And there's a picture of the ladies there on the bottom. That one, in fact, there's I was looking there, and there's a few there that I see that I know, and I see your mother there. I see a couple others that I know that are there. Lynn Stanwyck is there. Anyway, it was a big thing, parades. And our ladies meant a lot to the fire department. Without them, we would not exist. Anytime there was a situation where something developed, they were always there to help us. So this is the kind of after-war original photos of different parades that the ladies and men were in. Okay. Again, this is one of the dress uniforms. Okay. Yeah, that's Bucky, and I forget the gentleman's name on the other side there and that. But Sam, that's some price. I'm guessing that's in the 50s, that picture there of the members. Because if you look at the car in the back there, it looks like about a 53 maybe, something like that. What? Yeah, the names, there's a lot that you see. Yep. Dolphin right there in the front there. And that. Yeah, Al DePau.
Howard Woodbury.
A lot of them. Bill knows them all. Bill grew up in town. Okay, get next one. Okay, well, I just want to go through this, Nick. Just hold that on there a second. In 1948 and 49, the township purchased 2 Dodge pumpers, one for Company 1, one for Company 2, Company 3. I'll be okay. One for Company 3. That's the one on the right there. That's the 39, and that's a new pumper that was purchased. In 1949, also Community Company Engine 2 moved into its own building on land known as the Vest Pocket Farm. Did you know that?
Vest Pocket.
Vest Pocket Farm. That was the name of the farm, I guess, that they purchased the property from. Adjacent to the Wyckoff Community Club. It's interesting to note that 10 of the original 15 charter members placed a lien, as I mentioned before, on their home mortgage to build the firehouse at 180 Wyckoff Avenue. Go to the next one. Okay, now that's Company 2's picture that I had, the oldest one I could find. That's the chemical wagon, and that's a Ford that they bought right after the war there. And I'm guessing that's about the time they made them moved in, because the ground is still pretty dirt in the front there and that. I'm not sure, but I thought it was pretty around that period. As I said, Sam did a lot of things for the Wyckoff Fire Department in the 50s. This is Sam with his Isetta Fascini, a 1908 unit. It was painted red like a Chiefs car. And he'd drive it around, and that was really unbelievable. In the early 50s, Sam saw the need to create a fire police. And we created now the fire police to assist on traffic handling of fires, drill, special events. He was also responsible for extending the water system and installing hydrants in Wyckoff. Okay, the township committee then also adopted, with Sam's recommendation, adopted a fire prevention ordinance, and creation of a Bureau of Fire Prevention was established, which means that fire safety standards throughout the township. Bureau of Fire Prevention was credited as a prime factor in Wyckoff obtaining the fire insurance rating of C in 1951, making the first community in New Jersey with a fully volunteer department to receive this rating. Does everybody know what that means by that rating? And we're saying today? That's how your insurance is predicated, okay? How much you're gonna pay the insurance. Depends on your water sources, your fire department, and the equipment that they have, and so on, all right? So right now, we are the highest class, and I'm sure they go by numbers now. I think it's class 3, is it?
Yeah, we're rated as a 3.
We're rated as a 3. They changed it from letters to 3. In other words, to go any higher, you have to have a career or paid fire department there. So that's why our insurance is a lot less than it would be. We'll take it, for instance, the other day, and I don't need to change the subject, but there was a major fire up in Upper Saddle River, okay? The nearest hydrant, correct me if I'm wrong, was almost 6,000 feet from the structure, okay? And again, that would determine the reason that they lost the house possibly, and I'm not saying it was, but by the time they got water, enough water to extinguish that, by that time the house was probably fully involved at that point. So anyway, sorry to get off my program here. Okay, company 2 and 3, this is later on. This is their new 49 Dodge up there, and that was a GI Chevy that they got right after the war. I guess that's an Army surplus possibly, all right, if I'm not mistaken. And number 2, that's the first Mack pumper that we got. It's a 500 GPM pumper, first Mack. If you notice, the open cab compared to the other ones, or closed commercial vehicles, actually. Okay, now, some of the fires they had then in the early 50s, right? This was a fire on Lowlands Road. It was Meyer's Garage, okay, that burnt. And just threw a picture there. I'm not sure which barn this was that burnt, but I just want to show you how it was back then with the water situations. And on the right is administrating oxygen, all right, to a firefighter. And I guess it was need a little help breathing there. Okay, another big thing that went on, this is the NFPA. NFPA is the national standard for fall fire departments in this country, all right? Somehow they recognized Wyckoff Fire Department. This was in this Fireman magazine, was with Sam Brain, all about Wyckoff, and marching in a parade also. That was a big thing back then in the 50s to get something like that, to be in one of these magazines. It was, I guess, if I use the word utopia for fire departments back then, it was to be put into this magazine. All right, that's our 1954 Mack open pumper that we got in 1954. This is the acceptance of it with Chief Brain and some of the members of the township and our chief there. Okay. A few of us here own that pumper right now. We were able to purchase it a few years ago. Mr. Brock, Mr. Ciampo, and a couple of Ciampos and a couple of Brocks. We all own it now. And we've been working on it there at the funeral home. Thank God.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. The next part here I think is very interesting. Okay, at 2 o'clock in the morning, fire broke early on March 22nd. Where else? At the firehouse, all right? Now what happens there was a 20-second blast on the horn, and Chief Vance, who was the police chief, heard it, and he got his, one of his, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay. He got one of his patrolmen, who at the time was Eugene Gorelli, if I remember right, to go to the firehouse, and sure enough, there was flames. And what happened, the firehouse was on fire, the air horn went off quickly, and that was it, devastating. Now, here's the thing that you got to understand. Back then, if the air horn didn't go off, you didn't have a fire. So now, Mrs. Carol Landy, their mother, and Lynn Stanowik got on the phone to start calling firefighters. We got a fire at the firehouse. They didn't believe her. John thought you were, what are you doing? What are you telling me? Yeah, we got a fire at the firehouse. They had a hard time convincing them to get their butts out of bed and get to the firehouse, okay? So what happens then, I'm going to show you pictures of the fire. As you see, there's no SCBAs, that's Scott Packs, self-containing breathing apparatus. None of them had that on because we probably only had a couple at the time, all right? And what's happening is they're removing John Hamas. John Hamas, if you remember, was our building inspector for quite a few years in Wyckoff. They're removing him down the ladder on the left side there. And keep going, Nick. All right, and as you can see, the fire goes on here. Go ahead, Nick. All right, you can see how devastating it was. On the top left, they were removing, during the fire, removing the records of the clerk's office and that out of the windows to save as many as they could. All right, that's what they're doing there. That's Chief Brain and Chief Hayunga there. He became the chief after Sam was done with his in 1957. Okay, so this is it. I think we did see that one, all right? This is what it looked like prior. Okay, now, here we go, 1956, all right, probably, 56. They're digging for the new firehouse, a little groundbreaking for the new firehouse at Company 1, okay? And now, in 1957, the house is completed, and they're laying the cornerstone there for the new structure that just was built. Of course, in 1957 was also our 50th anniversary of the Wyckoff Fire Department. And I'm just going to go quickly through this. Chief Howard Woodbury, Chief of Fire Prevention, of course, Chief Sam Brain and Harry Kaufman was his fire police, and then this is the company chiefs, Scott, Van Blarkham, and Eder, excuse me, I'm thinking of Edler, Eder. Okay, now this is a picture of, in 57, of the fire company, 3 companies in front of town, on the side of town hall here. That's what it used to be. And this is one we have, Company 1. Okay, and this is the officers of Company 1, and I left the names there just so all the names were there, so I just said, let's put it in here. And then this is Company 2, all right, members staying there also. And then this is Company 2, again, with their officers and the members that were members in 1957. Company 3, I did not have the other photo. I couldn't find one. But this is still them in front of their firehouse with their officers and a list of all their names there, Company 3. You'll see on there, and they're right here right now, and I say another old family in town, the Gallenkamps. Peg is here. Her name is Stanley now, all right? One of the Gallenkamp families that goes back quite a while in our town also. Sycamac Dairy, if you didn't know that, all right? And so that's all part of it. And then the ladies then in 1957 with their names and that, and who were the president and secretaries of the Wyckoff Fire Department Auxiliary. I thought this was pretty interesting. I'm gonna have Ed stand up a second. Could you stand up a second, Ed? Ed Natale, all right? He knows a little more about this than I do, all right? And correct me here, Ed. This was for a parade, for our anniversary parade, correct? Yes. Okay. Now, who is the young gentleman in the photos?
I don't have my glasses on, but my dad's in the picture with the model steamer.
Okay.
They made the model steamer for the anniversary.
All right. Ed Natale's dad, I think, is one of the ones to the right side. I'm not sure which one it is. The right side. To the right of the steamer, okay. They made that steamer and pulled it in a parade, and the other ones also with those vehicles, they were handmade, and they were in the anniversary parade in 1957. I thought that was pretty interesting. Of course, the guys in 57 had a lot of fun, enjoyment there. So there's so many old-timers there. When I say old-timers, they were young then, by far. Yeah, Jimmy Meade and all the guys, Ray Needham and Bucky Felix, all of them there. Between all three companies, they're there from that. I thought that was pretty interesting as far as that goes. And so, did anybody know this? I mean, I had heard about it. I looked it up. In 1957, we had a Miss Wyckoff Fire Department pageant here. That's Howard Woodbury and the chief brain there on the right. And I'm not turning my...
Who was that winner?
Pardon?
Who won that?
This young lady here, Mrs. Nancy Lee Dutcher. She was the Miss Wyckoff Fire Department. And I just found this little note signed by her. I just thought it was nice to put it there for her concern with celebrating the anniversary of the Wyckoff Fire Department, 1957, and that. In 1958, they acquired this quad, and members of Company 1 refurbished it, and this is all refurbished now. That's took the place of that 1923 tiller that we did see before that Joe was driving. That took the place of this quad. These are the officers. Now, the reason I want to bring this up, and we're going quick about this, Company 1 had two companies when I joined. We had an engine company and a truck company. And this is the truck company we're talking about now, not the engine company, okay? So this is the officers of the truck company. And on the right, the second one from the Bucky Gabriel, Joe Landy, that's Ed Winters, Ray Hoff, Ray Hoff, Chet Veldren, thank you, and then George Harbeck. All right, they were there when I joined, so that's how I have to know them. Okay, I want to end up pretty soon because it's that time. We got to get out here. All right, I just want to mention here, it was time back then. I don't know how the firemen of that era thought of this, to start a mutual aid. A mutual aid of 13 towns started in 1958 here. And those that you see there are the original officers of that. Back then, majority of towns didn't need mutual aid. If I could go on for hours, we would have 10, 15 on an apparatus, okay? Just now, when I tell you we have so many mutual aid calls, I can't tell you because of short of manpower. So I think we got to finish here, right? We are you? Are we?
Finish up the 50.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to start here. We're going to go on later on for this. This is in 1959 when they started or formalized our departmental inspection between all three companies. A big thing that we have in Wyckoff, it's getting the apparatus in 100% plus shape, plus the members have to know how to work everything and know everything about every piece of equipment that's on there. So when you're asked a question about something, you had to know what was going on and what to do with that particular piece of equipment. All right? And in the first years, the truck company back then were the outstanding members between Company 1, 2, and 3. Engine Company 1, Company 2, and Company 3. That's just a picture of them there. Is that the last one?
2 more.
Oh, the last one?
No,
Okay.
1 more.
Okay, this is just the ribbons from going to the convention every year. When you go to the New Jersey State Firemen's Convention, it used to be in Atlantic City, now it's in Wildwood, you get a ribbon. And those ribbons go back quite a few years here. And of course, a quick look, this is just one of them I threw in. This is being inspected by the inspectors going back, this is probably, I don't know, early 80s maybe? 81, 80? Something like that, I would say. I see Bobby Cole there, young ones. Mike is here, Woody's there. I see, what's his name here?
Billy Greenhall.
Billy Greenhall, Vibrant. Welch. Okay,
Gordon's as well.
is that it? That's it, yes, we got into it, yes. Yes. We have to end it. Our time is end, I'm sorry. Well, I just want to mention one thing. I would like to just thank my granddaughter before I forget, Nicole, for putting all this together a bit for me. She had to put up with me. She had to put up with me.
Before we end, first of all, Nick, thank you so very much. This was so well documented. Photos were great. Presentation was wonderful and very informative. And it took a lot of hours, and I can imagine, to put all that together. So thank you. Just another quick tribute. I'm going to ask that all the firefighters and their families please stand.
If I would say also, and if I would say, when you all sit down again, I would like the former chief of our Wyckoff Fire Department to stand up. Mr. Chief Zarla. Sure, sure.
Okay, so 1921, in Washington School Road, funny little place called Ciampo, all came to Wyckoff, not Wyckoff, to Franklin Township School, and they were asked for money to rebuild the Washington School. The guys in Ciampo said, we're big enough, we can start our own town. So, the boss, to try to petition the legislature to create their own town, break away from Franklin Township. And that's how 1922 we became Franklin.
That's how you become Franklin.
And all of that school. But before, I just want to say, because I have been involved so long, with everything.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wyckoff, for your mutual aid. We try very hard. We don't have partners, but we try very hard to try to do it. Very much appreciate your mutual aid. Really don't touch me. That's it.
Thank you all. Now, just a couple of copies. Oh yeah, there's hold on a second. There's some books back there. If you like a book, please take it. There's a photos there. Also, if you would like, on that back table there. And John brought for me. This is a original helmet that goes way back to the early 1900s right here. And of course, this is one of the buckets, leather buckets that they were used. And of course, this hat is what you did see them on. This hat, cover, hat, okay? Does everybody know what this is? No. Okay. This is what the
Don't you dare.
auto got here, right? It's horn.
It's a radio.
Right? Thank you all for coming, I'm sorry.